Who are the real sinners in Sinners? Is it the vampires? Is it the juke joint patrons? Is it the smokestack twins? Is it Slim? Hello, my little bloodsuckers. If you do not know me, my name is Luis, your luscious video host. Today, we will be covering the genre-bending masterpiece that is Sinners. Sinners was written and directed by Ryan Coogler. The film is set in 1932 in the Mississippi Delta. The story is told mostly from Sammy's point of view. Some would say the movie also takes the point of view of the twins, but I wouldn't even say that. I would say it would just be Smoke. I would say the movie takes inspiration from Dusk Till Dawn with how they handled the first half of the film. However, Coogler said in an interview that he was inspired by the plot of Salem's Lot. I've not read the book or seen the recent movie, but now I want to. Just like From Dusk Till Dawn, until the vampires came, you wouldn't think it was a horror. It seems like Coogler wanted to lean into that. In the book Salem's Lot, the vampires come in halfway through the story, but until then, the characters are fully established, and they have their storylines and issues completely outside of the supernatural. Coogler wanted to vividly create the world these characters were living in. Sammy, the character around whom all the events revolve, is a pastor's son who lives on a cotton plantation. He has a love for playing the blues, but his father does not approve. He hears his cousins Elijah and Elias, or more infamously known as Smoke and Stack, are opening up a juke joint, and Sammy wants to play there. We meet different characters along the way, such as Annie, Smoke's previous lover, whom he had a child with, but the child did not live past infancy. Mary, Stack's childhood sweetheart, who is a quarter black. She currently lives in Arkansas and is married to a white man whom Stack set her up with. Then Stack abruptly vanished from her life. We also have the Chows, Grace and Beau, along with their daughter Lisa. They own the convenience stores in this little area. They are friends of the twins, though wary of them, they still find community amongst each other. Then we have Delta Slim, who is the blues-playing town drunkard who plays at a juke joint a ways away every Saturday night. We also have a woman who catches Sammy's attention, Perline, a married woman who is a known singer in the area. Along with some other people in the community, the twins get together all these people from the local community to turn the sawmill into a proper club. When dusk approaches, we have a vampire weasel his way into the house of a local couple who are members of the Klan. Little did they know, the local Native Americans were looking for the vampire, but they knew exactly what he was and how dangerous he could be. They heed the wife a warning before they take shelter for the night, though they knew it would be a warning that would fall on deaf ears. Without wasting much time, the vampire turns them both. I feel the events that happen throughout the night are not worth doing a play-by-play, so let's just get right into the analysis. For the cinematography of the movie, the two colors that pop out at me would be blue and orange. Even in the day scenes, we have wide shots of the plantations and the sky is prominent. The colors that most of the characters are wearing have cool tones to them. The orange is mostly prominent at night in the juke joint from the warm lights. But in the night portion of the movie, it feels like it points out a dichotomy. The warm lights would represent the sun, or maybe the ability to be in the sun. Those on the inside are alive and free to roam in the sunlight, though the people outside are dead and doomed never to see the sun again. A peculiar aspect of the movie I found was that the movie starts with a full screen view, but for the rest of the movie, the view is widescreen. There are two instances where the ratio goes back to full screen, and in my opinion, they don't add anything to the movie or the storytelling. It just felt odd. Honestly, this is my only big critique of the movie. The rest of it I loved. Another very important aspect of the film we have to talk about is the music. This movie does take the stance that music is spiritual and healing, so the songs are incredibly important. There's one scene that sums up the entire essence of where the blues comes from. We have Slim recounting when he and his friend Rice came about a large sum of money after playing for a rich white man. Slim drank all of his money, but Rice wanted to leave the Delta. When he bought a train ticket, the man working the kiosk saw all of his money. He then accused Rice of killing a white man and raping his wife for that money, and they hung him right there in the train station. Then Slim sadly grumbles to himself, which then builds to him humming a tune. This is where the blues comes from. With all this tragedy and mistreatment Black Americans go through, instead of letting their grief paralyze them, they turn it into something productive to help them move forward. For me, this was the second most powerful scene in the movie. The first being the spirit conjuring scene. We have this sequence of Sammy playing his music, specifically a song he wrote about apologizing to his preacher father and confessing how he loves the blues. Sammy has the gift of making music so pure and true that he can pierce the veil and conjure the spirits of his ancestors and the ancestors of those who are in the vicinity. The movie opens with Annie narrating what other cultures' folklore would call these people. They said that in Ireland they were called Fili. I thought I could find a clear-cut answer, but I didn't. There seems to be some discourse on what the Filid were. The official definition I found on Britannica.com was a professional poet in ancient Ireland whose official duties were to know and preserve the tales and genealogies of the ruling class and to compose poems recalling the past and present glory of that class. I found another article where they described the Filid primarily as seers and became a higher class than Druids after Christianity started spreading throughout Ireland. The same article said that the Filid's duties were probably closer to the Ovates or Vates. They were bards, prophets, and philosophers. So that would be why they were likened to this concept in the movie, a bard with prophetic abilities. The Choctaw Firekeepers don't seem to be music-based at all. The Firekeepers of the Choctaw people were storytellers. They are also known to lead rituals and ceremonies. That might be done with music. I haven't found a source to confirm or deny that, but the Firekeepers had the responsibility of passing down the stories and wisdom of their ancestors. And then we have the griots of West Africa, who are singers, musicians, and keepers of oral traditions. So I'm assuming the griots were the very inspiration of this concept in the movie. Slim also tells Sammy about how this gift of music was not taught to them by white people, like Christianity was pushed onto them. It was something they brought from home, home being Africa. There is a trend I've been seeing that some horror/supernatural media as of recent have been doing that I love. It is the circular nature of spirits, circular as opposed to linear, meaning that time on the other side does not exist like it does on our side. The ancestors that Sammy conjures are not just from the past, but also from the future. I love this concept simply because it's fascinating and challenges how you think about the supernatural. I don't know if certain cultures believe in the circular nature of time on the other side. We don't have that kind of time today, but if any of you know any more about that, please share in the comments. I would love to read about it. We have the song Picked Poor Robin Clean. Topically, this is a double entendre. These are vampires singing about eating someone, which is exactly what they are trying to do, and even succeed in doing. The song was recorded by Geeshie Wiley, which, by the way, was done in 1931, and the movie takes place in 1932, so this was a new song. At the beginning of the recording, Gishi mentions the cock robin. This term is based on a nursery rhyme, but a cock robin was also slang for someone who was easily persuaded to follow others. Remick and the other two are trying to persuade the people inside to let them in so they can kill them and join them. Everyone in the juke joint are cock robins about to be picked by the vampires. Now, for Pale Pale Moon, the song Perline sings is about how she doesn't want the sun to come up. I would say this is to symbolize that a vampire who is now among them would want the exact thing. Sammy is not a very active character in the movie. He is a catalyst for this entire plot to transpire. I would say Sammy represents music. He is the spirit of making music for music's sake. He is young and inexperienced. I believe he is 19 at this point. His entire life has been on that plantation. He doesn't know much else. But all in all, he's a good kid. With that, I would like to talk about inherited evil. Throughout the movie, multiple characters are in shock when they find out that Sammy is the cousin of the Smokestack twins. He can't be related to those shady twins because Sammy seems like such a good boy. The fact that he is related to the twins holds him back from moving to a different area in the state. Smoke tells Sammy that they couldn't start over in a nearby town founded by former slaves because the mayor knew their father. He said there was no way that evil could not have been passed to them. Since the twins were his sons, they were barred from making an honest living because people believed they were evil, just like their father. Which is an interesting stance to take, since they live in an incredibly racist time, and racism kind of operates by vice or virtue of your birth. You were predisposed to certain ways of acting just because of your skin color. This is a theme in the film. All the unsavory decisions made by the cast were made out of survival. This also informs Sammy's future life decisions. He was adamant about being a musician. He wanted something that the area he was in could not offer him. He didn't want to be at the mercy of the Jim Crow South like all of the other characters. The Chows are great additions to the cast. For those who are not familiar, there is a community of Chinese Americans that has lived in the Mississippi Delta since the late 19th century. This is the reason why the Chows have Southern accents, because they were born and raised in that area. An interesting thing about their accents is that Grace has a white Southern accent and Bo has a black Southern accent, to give an example of the code switching they might do. With that said, the road crossing scene is a metaphor that shows how the Delta Chinese American communities navigated the Jim Crow South. They were not white, but they were not black either. So they were allowed to exist in the middle of this dichotomous segregation. They were allowed to own businesses that white people and black people would patronize. The Chows owned both buildings on both sides of that street. But one side is the white side, the other is the black side. The Chow's relationship to the twins seemed to be one of friendship, but they seemed to also take business transactions seriously. They seemed to trust each other, but not entirely. At least Grace doesn't, which Grace seems to be the one of the couple who is more cautious, which makes sense. Grace, as a woman, has more of a sense of self-preservation than her husband. Another thing I wanted to point out is how healthy their relationship seems. Grace and Bo appeared to be so in love, and like they were partners. They listened to each other, and they were so in love even when being together long enough to have a teenage daughter. Now, the scene where Grace invited the vampires inside the juke joint has given the character a lot of hate, but I would cut her some slack. We are not considering all of the factors at play. Once Bo is turned, she is now a single mother. Grace and Bo are the only people who have a child to speak of out of that entire group of people inside. Since the vampires all share each other's memories, they know where Lisa is. Remick even says it. There are several instances where Remick talks about seeing the memories of those he turned. They don't know how fast they can move. We don't know how close or far Lisa is to the juke joint. Remick knew that out of everyone inside, Grace was the one with the most to lose, and he exploits that. He speaks to her in Chinese and threatens to turn her daughter. All of that was calculated. They just threatened the only family she had left, her child at that. She didn't know if she would survive the night. She probably knew they were not going to survive the night regardless. She probably thought there was no use in delaying the inevitable, so she thought her best bet was to free her husband from that curse and go straight for him. Also, the one thing to remember, if the vampires didn't come, everyone there would have been done for anyway. Ryan Coogler even said that himself. Remember, the mill was sold off to the twins by the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan. Remick said they planned to come in the morning to kill everyone that was left in the mill, and they ended up coming. Remick did not lie. Putting all of the blame on Grace would miss the point the movie was trying to convey, which is the fucked up reality they were in. Vampires or not, they were at the mercy of the Jim Crow South, which did not show much mercy for people of color. Do I think what she did was selfish? Yeah. Do I think it was foolish and it didn't really pay off? Yeah. Do I think it was right? No. But I can't fault her for the decisions she made. All of her decisions were incredibly human, and Remick was counting on that. Annie is the most level-headed and knowledgeable person in the movie. It is established in the movie that she practices hoodoo, which is a spiritual practice that was developed by enslaved Black Americans from various traditional West African spiritualities. Those who practice hoodoo are called root workers, conjure doctors, and conjure men/women, or root doctors. Hoodoo is not a religion. It is often practiced alongside Christianity, but it is a form of witchcraft, which is not a bad thing to say. Hoodoo is not malevolent, it is mostly used to protect and heal. And we have evidence that Annie is a powerful root worker. The first time we catch a glimpse of her power is in this scene when she is talking to Smoke. He is talking about everything he has seen and experienced and how no magic protected him, and how money was the only way to obtain true power. Annie retorts that after all that war he had experienced, and God knows what dangerous things he was doing in Chicago, he is standing in front of her in one piece. Annie is pissed, to say the least. This man, the very man who she worked so hard to protect, was talking to her in such an ungrateful way, like she wasn't the reason why he wasn't missing even a finger. As she retorts to Smoke, we see the visual distort and blur around her, and we hear a sound reminiscent of a steady wind blowing through.
How you know I ain't free? And work every route my grandmama taught me to keep you and that crazy brother of yours safe. Every day since you've been gone.
But then Smoke says something about their baby, which catches her off guard. Then everything goes back to normal. That was her energy we were seeing. She also touched Smoke's chest, and she immediately knew that Smoke was still wearing the mojo bag she gave him. For those who don't know, a mojo bag is a good luck charm. Some say it's a prayer in a bag or spell that is carried with the person wearing it. It can be filled with herbs that correspond with the bag's intention. It can also be filled with a person's hair or a piece of their clothing to further connect the bag to that person. Obviously, Annie used that bag to protect Smoke, and it worked. I will talk more about why I think that later. Sorry to interrupt this lovely video. I just want to let you all know I am still not getting much money from YouTube, nor do I have a big enough following to justify making a Patreon just yet. So I decided to sell things on Redbubble. Do you love absurdity? Then these products are for you. Here's a button mash shirt. Here's a button with a button mash on it. Have you ever gotten up in the morning and thought, man, I wish I had a shirt with a picture of a beaver that says whore on it? Neither have I, but I made this shirt anyway, as well as this pillow. There's also this very real quote by Julius Caesar that I put on a shirt. So if you would like to support me directly, help make YouTube my job, and get a plethora of products out of it, please use the link in the video description. If none of these products interest you, but you still want to give me your support, my Venmo is also listed in the video description. Now back to our regularly scheduled programming. Annie leads with her powerful intuition. She did not feel right when the vampires first appeared. The entities she thought the vampires were at first were haints. Haints are entities known in Southern folklore. They are simply malevolent ghosts who cannot move on due to unfinished business. They are known to take various forms, which is why Annie could have confused them with vampires until she threw pickled garlic brine on Stack after he was turned. By the end of the night, when they were figuring out what to do, Annie was using a form of divination. She threw the items like jacks or dice, but she used different items like buttons, bones, and keys. I'm assuming she did this to see if she would survive the night. From what she saw, she knew that she would not survive the night. That's why she asked Smoke to kill her if she was bitten. Mary kind of is and isn't the undoing of everyone at the Juke, because we established with Grace that everyone would be dead anyway if the vampires didn't show up. There's a message in the movie about being in touch with your roots and knowing where you come from, and be careful who you share that with, because those people could take advantage of your culture and appropriate it. This message is made clear when you see the difference in storylines between Mary and Annie. Mary is a quarter black, she passes for white. She is most likely disassociated with her black community because she is now married to a white man and lives in Arkansas, a white man that Stack set her up with. Realistically speaking, she would have had to have distanced herself from the black community out of safety, though she knows who she is, and if it were her decision, she would have never chosen a rich white man over Stack. While every unsavory decision made by the main characters is made out of survival, there is also the idea that is explored specifically with the twins' partners, how proximity to whiteness can affect your decision-making. Mary is a white-passing slim woman. She has the security of white proximity, something a plus-size black woman like Annie has never been afforded. She has been living as a white woman for some time now, and she makes reckless decisions that she thinks her proximity to whiteness will protect her from any repercussions, or if there are any, they will not be severe. That fear is non-existent in her, which is why she even showed up to that club in the first place, because just being there put everyone at risk anyway. Stack even tells her to leave, but she stubbornly stays. She felt the rules were ridiculous. This informs how she probably grew up. She felt emboldened to do whatever she wanted. A stark difference to Mary, during this period, black women like Annie were pushed to be providers. While they did not mammify her, which I am so grateful, she still felt like her own person. She was a sexual being with her own frustrations. She wasn't just happy to help indiscriminately, but she was a provider nonetheless. In the entire movie, Annie is knowledgeable about the vampires. She protected Smoke the entire time he was away. She helped work behind the bar. She even prepared the catfish that everyone was eating. It was a very conscious decision to have Annie working and Mary dancing. While Annie was contributing to the community and helping build a sanctuary, Mary's decisions ultimately destroyed that sanctuary. The decision to go after money, specifically the white man's money, was the real thing that led to everyone's undoing. And the person that would have been the weakest link, no fault to her, would be Mary. I'll talk more about all that when we get to Remick. Stack is the younger twin and the more reckless of the two. He seems more motivated by emotion, but he follows the lead of his brother. Because of this, he thinks he can take more risks. Seeing this, you would think Stack would be more selfish and run off with Mary, but he thought realistically, and he decided to leave her and set her up with a white man because she would have had a better quality of life with a rich white man than being with Stack. But he loved Mary more than anything, and he thought of her every day since he was gone. I think he is the more sentimental of the two. Stack would be the one to hesitate and be the easiest one to catch off guard, unlike Smoke. When Mary bites Stack, the second Smoke sees it, he starts shooting Mary. No questions asked, he's seen enough. Stack might have mulled it over a bit. Now, speaking of Smoke, while he is the brains of the two, it's Smoke that is the more violent of the two. Watching the movie back, almost every instance of violence the twins carry out is done by Smoke. When getting rid of that snake in the trunk of their car, Stack threw his knife to Smoke. When intimidating the man who sold the mill, it was Smoke who reached for his gun. All Stack did was walk behind him. Smoke kills the town's entire chapter of the Ku Klux Klan. Smoke points a gun at Sammy. Even in the story Stack shares about their dad, his father knocked him out. When he came to, Smoke had already killed him. Smoke carries the weight of being the one to always carry out the violence and to always protect his brother. It wasn't made explicitly clear, but it is subtly made clear that Stack needs Smoke. He didn't know how to watch his own back. When they fought in World War I, keeping Stack safe was Smoke's #1 priority. In the scenes where the twins are introduced, we see that Smoke has fits where his hands shake, but Stack does not. Stack came out of the war unfazed because he didn't do anything that would traumatize him down the line, but Smoke did. This is to show how carefree Stack can be because of the violence his brother decides to take on. The only instance where Stack carries out a violent act is when he bites Annie and tries to bite Smoke. But Smoke has a soft side to him. A significant scene that tells the viewers who Smoke is as a character is the scene where he teaches this little girl how to haggle. He could have easily taken advantage of her and just given her any lousy amount because she was excited to get any amount of money. But Smoke told her not to be satisfied with just any amount that someone tells her. He wanted this girl to be left with a lesson in how to advocate for herself. He's shifty because that is the business he got into out of survival, but deep down he wants to give back to his community. Stack knows that too. Stack isn't as pragmatic as Smoke, that's why he accepted plantation money when most patrons there could only pay with bats. They wanted to give those people an escape, to give back to their community. Smoke is also very family-oriented. His family is extremely important to him. That's why he didn't bring himself to kill Stack once he turned and made him promise to let Sammy live out his life. After Annie's death and Stack can now protect himself, he doesn't have much to live for. He doesn't care if he doesn't survive this standoff with these clan members. We know this because before they arrived, he ripped off his mojo bag. He wanted to be reunited with Annie and their daughter. That night, we saw that when Stack was trying to bite Smoke, he hesitated. Why? We hear this distortion, this force. Does it sound familiar?
And work every route my grandmama taught me to keep you and that crazy brother of yours safe.
This is the same sound that happened when Annie got fired up in her argument with Smoke. So that mojo bag did its job when protecting Smoke. It was charged with Annie's intention, and she has been keeping him safe this entire time. In Smoke's last moments, we see Annie's spirit, and she's nursing their daughter. Smoke was smoking, and she said, "If you put that cigarette out, you can hold her. I don't want all that smoke to get on her." Meaning to leave that persona as Smoke behind when coming to the afterlife. Smoke is too abrasive and violent. Smoke can rest now, and he can gently hold his daughter as Elijah. Now for Remick, and the vampires in general, we get introduced to Remick almost halfway through the movie. Let's get acquainted with the vampires' abilities and limitations. In this world, they cannot enter anyone's property unless invited. They can read minds, it seems. Remick knows Mary's mother had passed without her speaking about it. This was before he turned her. They are weak to wooden stakes to the heart and garlic, but they are not weak to or avoid crosses and prayers. Remick can also fly, but the other vampires don't seem to fly, which means it takes years to learn how to do. An important thing about this story is that the vampires are a metaphor for culture vampires, people who exploit or disrespect a culture for their own gain. Remick is Irish, and it seems he was still human during the beginning of Ireland's occupation by the English, so he had experience being discriminated against and being seen as subhuman. This was a conscious decision made by Coogler, not only because he loves Irish folk music, but also because Remick would be the odd one out in this period, and he would see this racism for what it is: completely ridiculous, unnecessary, and destructive. The most fascinating aspect of the vampires for me is when Remick or any vampire turns someone, they get all of their life experiences. Like, you experience them firsthand. All of their skills are now yours. This is the ultimate form of empathy. But with this ultimate form of empathy comes a double-edged sword. Your memories are now my memories. Your culture becomes my culture. If taken that far with the subtext shown in the movie, it is taken that far. I think this is a beautiful thing presented in such a grotesque way. The world would be a lot better if we had empathy for one another. While well-intentioned, Remick takes this empathy too far to the point of appropriation. He is at the juke in the first place because he wants Sammy's gift of conjuring ancestors with his music. This could be interpreted in a few different ways. This could be straight up cultural appropriation, like I said, taking a person's culture and treating it like your own. This could also be the commodification of music. Remick could represent capitalism's push to make money off of everything and have as many customers as possible, because he will inevitably spread this gift to others as he turns them, while Sammy represents the desire to make music for music's sake. I think both things can be true at the same time, because everything went left once they started going for the white man's money / capitalism. Commodification takes the fun and the passion out of everything. It kills it. More on what Sammy represents. In the early years of the blues and folk music in general, music was a way of life. It was not owned by one person and sold, it was shared amongst the community. Coogler said in an interview that he was trying to find the first song that he heard the phrase "smokestack lightning." He thought he had it, but then he found someone who said it 20 years prior. Back then, it wasn't, "I made this song, so you can't sing it." It was shared. There's also a very conscious decision to make the vampires a little hippie, or at least with certain lines. Remick and this lady use the word love in a way that is reminiscent of 70s free love hippies, saying they are all about love and how they want to create their own congregation based on equality and love. And what are hippies notorious for and getting a lot of flack for these days? Appropriating cultures. Think of the current discourse around the boho aesthetic. In fact, the boho aesthetic, or just the boho effect, is the perfect example of what Remick represents in this movie. Boho is short for bohemian. Its meaning has been lost. Most people think bohemian just means hippie or an aesthetic associated with the Roma. I'm not saying the slur. For the longest time, Roma have been associated with this term in Europe because they thought they came from Bohemia. Bohemianism was a French art movement that romanticized and exoticized Romani culture. The Kingdom of Bohemia was part of the area now known as the Czech Republic. Real Bohemian culture is just Czech culture. Nothing to do with the Romani people, but that is the boho effect. Call something not European, European, and now it's fancy and desirable. The term bohemian came to mean the qualities that have been romanticized about the Roma, socially unconventional people who are in the arts. Today, though I'm sure people still identify with bohemianism, it has now been commodified as an aesthetic with people who are anti-capitalist and peace-loving. Though now, if Romani people dress like those bohemians, they will get racially profiled. Most recent evidence of the boho effect would be marketing South Asian clothing and jewelry as Scandinavian. The boho effect would be associated with Remick in the way that a white person can see a culture that is not their own and love it, but not leave it at that. They don't pay respect to where it came from, even completely forgetting where it came from, and just slapping a more palatable European identity to it and selling it to other white people. Remick loves Sammy's ability to conjure ancestors, and it is shown that he does not just conjure his own ancestors, he conjures the ancestors of those in the vicinity of him. We see some ancestors of the Chows, which Remick could see. Instead of peacefully joining Sammy and seeing his ancestors that way, he wanted to selfishly and violently take Sammy's gift for himself, and will eventually give that gift to just anyone as he turns people indiscriminately, like how capitalism wants as many customers as possible. I know that was a lot of information I just threw at you, but let's talk about the namesake of the movie, Sinners. Who would be the sinners in this movie? Is it Remick? Is it all of the vampires? Is it the twins? The real meaning of the title would be pointing out the hypocrisy of the Black Church. If the sinners were the vampires, the Lord's Prayer would have worked at pacifying Remick. Instead, it's revealed that he even says it from time to time to bring himself comfort, even though it was that religion that was pushed onto his people, just like it was pushed onto Sammy's people. So the sinners would be whoever the people decide are sinners. Coogler said the reason why the blues was seen as the devil's music was because of money. When it was time for offerings, the congregation had nothing to offer because they spent all of their money at juke joints the night before. These are all religious people, yet they're sinners just because they want to swish their hips once a week after a long week of hard labor. This also goes back to the concept I brought up about inherited evil. Most people who knew of the twins decided they were sinners, and whoever was related to them would be sinners just like them, even though that is not true. So it's really whatever the people at large decide is profane and what is sacred. And if you ask me, it's up to the people in charge what is profane and what is sacred to try to control the people at large. Thank you to everyone who has stayed to the end of the video. I am taking a leap of faith in prioritizing YouTube more, so you will be seeing more videos from me more often. If you want to help with that, please like, subscribe, and comment. Do all the things, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.